أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, we start from Babul Ihdad, the chapter of mourning. And even though it's going to come at the end of the chapter, except that we'll mention it at the beginning of the chapter, the vast majority or all of the rulings, according to an opinion of the ulama, all of the rulings for the woman who is in mourning, yani her husband has passed away, they are exactly the same as the rulings for a woman who is in her iddah for her third divorce. They are all exactly the same with one exception, and that is where she stays. Where she stays. So the woman who her husband has passed away, her iddah, if possible, is completed in the house that she is staying in, yani where her husband passed away. The house that she is living in at the time that her husband passes away, that's where she does her iddah. As for the woman who's been divorced 3 times, then they can negotiate whether she stays in that house, obviously without him, or she leaves the house to somewhere else, her family's house or another house, maybe another house that she owns, whatever it may be, but somewhere else where she now has her own house and she does her iddah there. So all of the rulings are the same except for the house, and we'll speak about some of the details inshallah. Before we get into the iddah of the woman who her husband passes away, because they're the same rulings, we'll just go into the iddah of a woman from divorce. The man has how many divorces when it comes to his wife? 3. The first and second divorce, all the rulings of a normal marriage still apply. Everything is still halal. She doesn't leave the house. He still has to spend on her. She's allowed to be in front of him without hijab. They're allowed to share the same bed. It is only a matter of if he is intimate with her or not, does that mean he has taken her back? This is the only thing that there's a consequence to. So he has to spend, she's still exactly his wife, and he's still her husband. Everything is 100% halal. She doesn't leave the house, she can talk to him, he has to spend on her, she can walk in front of him without hijab, etc., etc., etc. The only matter is, from that which is halal, is if they are intimate, does that automatically mean that they have gone back together? And what did we say is the stronger opinion, wallahu alam? Yes, that if he does sleep with her, it is like him saying to her verbally, I take you back. Okay, so if they were divorced in her iddah, then they are intimate with one another, that is like him taking her back. Okay, so if it's her first divorce or her second divorce, everything is exactly the same from the rulings. What we are talking about here with these rulings is the iddah of a woman who has been divorced 3 times. 3 times. This is a divorce in which he can not take her back now in her iddah. The other ones were raj'iyah. He can take her back. Now he cannot take her back. If the husband wants to marry her again, what needs to happen? We said if a woman, not we said, the Sharia, but we taught that the woman, if she's been divorced 3 times from her husband, the only way they are allowed to get back together is if in the future she got married, another proper marriage to someone else, and then for whatever reason that marriage didn't work out, they ended up getting divorced, then they are allowed to go back together. Now we're obviously with a new marriage contract, and we explained some of the reasons and the wisdoms and the rulings regarding that in previous lessons. So this is not a raj'i talaq. It's not a talaq that he can take her back in. And this has a special name. What's that name? Baynuna Kubra. Naam, Jazakallah khairan. This is the mustalah that we're looking for. Baynuna Kubra, the big separation. Naam, meaning they cannot get back together unless she gets married. What's the other one? Baynuna Sughra, very good. Which is what?
The 2 divorces at the start. So if you divorce them, you can get back together.
Something extra. You're halfway there. You're halfway there. بينونة صغرى is what?
First two طلاق مرق 3 أشهر علينا.
الله يهديك أنت و3 شهور.
ثلاث
خلاص خلص عدتها. Good. شيخ أنا لا أدري ماذا حدث له اليوم. عادة هو ممتاز اللهم بارك. He's a little bit nervous يعني because the Sheikh here he's getting a little bit wrong. Correct. بينونة صغرى. I know we're going back over this a lot, but it's very important because a lot of the questions you're going to be asked about marriage and divorce. That's why we're doing the course. So we want everyone to be very well versed about these matters. بينونة صغرى, the small separation, is if it's the first or second divorce. And then the iddah has finished. Whether she was pregnant or she got her menses 3 times, or she doesn't get her menses and so 3 months passed. Okay? If she finished her iddah, the first or second divorce, this is called baynuna sughra. It's a separation. He can't just automatically take her back. They need to get back together with a new marriage new marriage contract. Baynuna kubra, they've been divorced 3 times. 3 times. This is the big separation. Now they can't get back together unless she gets married, has a proper marriage, they get divorced, and then they can get back together. Okay, this is very important to understand. That's the divorce that we're talking about, that one who has had 3 divorces and al-ihdad. First 2 divorces, everything is still the same. So if a man has a wife at home and it's divorced first or second time, then everything, as we mentioned, has to be exactly the same. They still have to cover all the bills. I know some people, they get separated. They get divorced and they separate from one another and they think that the rulings don't apply. So they think because he said to his wife talaq, that automatically she has to leave the house or he has to leave the house. Or that they are not allowed to speak to one another. Or that she can't walk around the house freely and she has to wear hijab. Or that he doesn't have to fulfill his financial obligations towards her. And all of this is completely wrong. The marriage is 100% normal. And I know some people, when it comes to the 3rd talaq, they're the opposite. Where they are meant to be now completely separated because they're not mahram of one another anymore. They can't be together in the same house alone. He can't see her without the hijab and the like. So now, if the 3rd divorce happens, from that moment, there needs to be separation. They are now ajanib to one another. They are now strangers to one another. Now he can't see her without the hijab. He can't, wallah, have photos on his phone of her without the hijab, etc. The rulings are now completely different and completely changed. Taib, he says, rahimahullah, regarding the ihdad, he's going to be speaking about the mourning, the wife whose husband has passed away, but just keep in mind that the rulings are the same for both, those who are in mourning and those who have been divorced 3 times. يقول رحمه الله وهو واجب على المتوفى عنها زوجها. And it is binding, it is an obligation. These mustalahat, these terminologies that are used, especially in the books of fiqh, are very important. When he says it is wajib, it means this is an obligation. Meaning if a woman doesn't do it, she is falling into sin. Good. What are the ahkam shar'iyya? What are the 5 rulings of the sharia? Every single action, doesn't matter what it is, every single action will fall under one of these 5 rulings. What are they? Sunnah or mustahab? Fard or wajib? Mubah, makruh, and haram. Okay? So fard or wajib, they mean exactly the same thing. Obligation. There's only a very small difference in the Hanafi madhab. But fard wajib, obligation, it's clear cut. What is considered an obligation? Or what is the definition? That which you have to do, and if you do it, you get rewarded. And if you don't do it, you are sinful. That's a fard wajib. Okay, obligation. Mustahab or sunnah, it is, the definition, the translation, recommended. It is something that is recommended in the sharia. Meaning, if you do it, you get rewarded. But if you don't do it, you are not sinful. Mubah. Mubah means there isn't a command to do it or to not do it. It's not necessarily recommended or prohibited or disliked in and of itself. Like now, you want to sit on a plastic chair or a metal chair. It's up to you. You want to have carpet or tiles in your house, it's mubah. Okay, you prefer apple juice or orange juice, it's mubah. It's something that is up to you. It's not necessarily rewarding or sinful in of itself, or preferred or disliked in of itself, but the mubah can become rewarding or sinful depending on your intention and how you use it. Type the makruh, which is that which is disliked. It's disliked by Allah, it's disliked in the Sharia. And by consequence, if you stay away from it, from the sake of Allah, you get rewarded. But if you do it, you are not sinful. Like when you make wudu, for example, when you put the water in with your right hand and into your mouth and nose. It is makruh, disliked, to use your left hand. It's not haram, but it is not, it's not rewarded. Okay? It's disliked. Number 5 is haram, that which is prohibited, meaning if you stay away from it, from the sake of Allah, you get rewarded, but if you do it, you are sinful. Okay, this is very important. وَهُوَ وَاجِبٌ عَلَى الْمُتَوَفَّى عَنْهَا زَوْجُهَا. It is an obligation upon the one whose husband passes away, and so the woman who doesn't do her iddah correctly, this woman is sinful. And unfortunately, this is becoming more and more common. This is becoming more and more common, that the sisters whose husband passed away, or they have been divorced 3 times, that they don't perform their iddah. And this is a great shame. This is a great shame, because it shows that your care factor for what Allah Azza wa Jalla wants from you is minimal. Rather, what we should be doing is finding out in all aspects, in all facets of life, what does Allah want from me so that I can implement. As for picking and choosing that which is in the religion and that which is convenient for me to do, then this is not the way of the Muslim. I do what Allah tells me when it's easy and convenient and it's in my favor, and also when there's some hardship brought on by it, because I need to be patient, or because it goes against the social norms, or my friends aren't in tune with it, or whatever it may be. We need to uphold the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal no matter what. وهو اجتناب الزينة والطيب والكحل والإثمد ولبس الثياب المصبوغة للتحسين لقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تحد امرأة على ميت فوق 3 إلا على زوج 4 أشهر و10 ولا تلبس ثوبا مصبوغا إلا ثوب عصب أو تكتحل ولا تكتحل ولا تمس طيبا إلا إذا اغتسلت نبذة من قسط أو أظفار. It includes avoiding adornments. The woman does not beautify herself. If her husband passes away, she does not adorn herself. She does not perfume herself. She does not put kuhl on. This kuhl can be done for 2 reasons. It is not like the eyeliner that we have today. They used to use something called ithmid. And this was actually, it has some medicinal benefits. So she doesn't use kuhl by ithmid for beautification. And wearing clothes that are dyed for beautification. This is because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no woman should mourn more than 3 days for anyone who dies, except for her husband, or for whom she should mourn 4 months and 10 days, as came in the Quran. She should not wear garments that are dyed or patterned, except for the asp garments, which is a type of adorned garment. She should not put on kuhl or perfume, but when having a ritual bath, when she's doing ghusl after her menses, she may use a little qust or athfar, and these are types of things that have a scent to it, and they're used as cleaning products. Tayyib. The general rule for the woman who her husband passes away, or she's been divorced 3 times, is that she does not beautify herself while she's in her iddah. This doesn't mean she can't wear good clothing or nice clothing or brush her hair or have showers. No, she can do everything normally, but she is not beautifying herself. So she is not, for example, dyeing her hair a special color. She is not wearing jewelry. She is not wearing makeup. She's not putting perfume on. These things are done for purification. The normal things like wearing good clothes, shampooing, conditioning your hair, scrubbing your body. These are normal things. There is not a problem with it. Using deodorant, not a problem with it. Brushing your teeth and putting moisturizer on, etc. These things are just maintenance. These are not a problem. These are not a problem. What is mentioned here is that which is done for the purpose of beautification. وعليها المبيت في منزلها الذي وجبت عليها العدة وهي ساكنة فيه إذا أمكنها ذلك. And it is binding upon her whenever possible to spend the night at the home where she was living when the iddah became incumbent upon her. So if she's living in a house with her husband and her husband passes away, she does her iddah in that house if it is possible for her to do so. Examples where it may be hard but not impossible. Let's say she's living in a house that is rented, and in order for her to say living in that house, she needs to pay rent. If she can afford to do so, or her children can assist her in it, because now it's an obligation upon them to look after their mother, then they do so. And she does her iddah there, she finishes her iddah. Sometimes it is not possible. Let's say she's in a rented house and she can't afford the rent. So she's allowed to go to a place where it is possible for her to do so. Or she needs, for whatever reason, some type of medical treatment, and because of that she needs to go to another place. Or sometimes she needs someone to be living with her, to take care of her. The husband used to, now he's passed away. She needs someone to look after her. Maybe her son or her daughter live in another city, so they can't come live with her. She's allowed to go to them. It just goes back to the need. If there isn't a need for her to move, she stays in that house. If there is a need for her to move, then she moves to wherever she is able to do her iddah. What's it referring to regarding staying in the house? When can she leave? When can she not leave? When it comes to the woman being in a house, she's allowed to go to whatever is considered the house. In the front yard, the backyard, that's fine. The front yard, the backyard, that is fine. The porch, the pergola, upstairs, downstairs, on the roof, what is considered the house, she's able to be in. People are allowed to visit her. There's no restrictions on that. As long as it's a halal visit, it's not an issue. Her brother, her father, any sisters, it's not a problem, okay, for her to be visited. Okay, what happens when she wants to leave? Is she allowed to leave her house, Islamically speaking? Islamically speaking, she should remain in the house except if there is a need. Except if there is a need, and the night times are more strict than the daytime. So if she needs to work, let's say she's the sole provider for her children and she needs to go to work, then she's allowed to leave her house, go to work and come back. And this was done by some of the Sahabiyat, radiallahu anhun. May Allah be pleased with them. They were able and allowed to go out during the day to attend to their date palm trees and then come back. Now, so if they need to go to the doctors, maybe they need to drop the kids off at school. If there is something that they need to do, then they go out. If they don't need to, then they remain at home. Simple example. Do they need to go to the shops? If they can do online shopping and it comes in time, then do online shopping and it comes in time. But let's say you need something at that particular moment, the kids have run out of milk and they need milk, and the only way to get it is for you to go out, and they need it, no issue. Or they need medicine, and the only way to get that medicine is going out now, you go and get it, no issue. If there's someone to get it for you easily, then they should do it. For example, taking the kids to school. If your neighbor or your brother or a good friend, they can easily come pick up your kids and they're happy to do so, there's no issue, then let them do it. But if there's hardship and there's problems and it's very inconvenient for others, and so you need to do it, again, when there's a need, no issue. When there's a need, no issue. To attend your sister's, son's, your nephew's first birthday party, allowed or not allowed? Not allowed. To go to the movies because it's a really good movie that came out, allowed or not allowed? To go to one of the sisters, she's doing a hen's night at a restaurant, for you to go, allowed or not allowed? Because these things are not a need. These things are not a need. And even though I know it sounds obvious, except that some people make an excuse of, oh, I need to do it because I'm going to miss out on my friend's hen's night or my nephew's first birthday or whatever. We're not even talking about halal and haram, we're just talking about a need. It's not a need. A need is If you don't have it, it's going to make life quite problematic. That's what is considered a need. As for the night times, then it becomes stricter. That is not left except for dire need. That's not left for except for dire need. Yani there's like a medical emergency or something along the lines. We get asked about this a lot, that's why I'm going to mention it. Psychological reasons. Do they fall under need, yes or no? Yani a woman says, like, I'm quite depressed and I need to get out a little bit and come back. Allowed or not allowed? Depends on what you're, doctor. Good. If it actually has become a need, no issue. If it actually has become a need, yes, no issue. Yani, maybe she has gone through a bit of depression and she actually needs to get out, and someone comes, takes her for a drive, or they go to a local park or whatever it may be, and it's something which is actually a need, no problem. But if it's just a matter of, now I want to, no, I want is not a need. جيد. فإن خرجت لسفر أو حج فتوفي زوجها وهي قريبة رجعت لتعتد في بيتها وإن تباعدت مضت في سفرها. If she has left for travel or pilgrimage and her husband dies while she is still near, she should return to spend the waiting period in her home. If she is far, she can carry on with her travel. First and foremost, what is considered near and what is considered far?
خلال عملة قبل المطار فار بعد المطار.
في مطارات على أيام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأيام قدامى الله يهديك. You're having a field day today يا راغب الله يبارك. غدا سيعود بكيكة جميلة يا شيخ إن شاء الله. Good. اللهم بارك كريم. شوف إذا أنت اليوم عم بتخربط وكريم ما شاء الله أجاب إجابة صحيحة. في مشاكل.
نحكي عن واقع هلا.
Here, the qarib and ba'id, the close and the far, is talking about the distance of travel. What is referred to here is the distance of travel. And if she is close, she comes back. What's considered close? If she hasn't passed the distance of travel, approximately 80 kilometers from the city, approximately. Okay? So this is what it's referring to. She can come back? No. She's not considered a musafira yet. She's still considered a muqima. She's still considered a resident. So if she hears the news of her husband's passing, and she is still considered a resident, then she comes back to where she is and she does the iddah in the house of her residency. If she is far, meaning she is past, again, approximately the 80-kilometer range. She's past it, then she has a choice. If she has a mahram, whether they can bring her back, she comes back. If her mahram can't come back or she chooses to continue on her travel, she is allowed. She's allowed to continue on her travel and do the iddah in the place that she goes to. So let's say she's going from here to Tripoli. Okay, and خلاص, we use Raghib's example. She's already in the aeroplane. Naam. Obviously she can't come back. Okay, she can't come back and turn the aeroplane around. So she is obviously going to continue. But let's say she gets to Beirut and she finds out her husband has passed away. And she does sujood shukr. Naam, but she's a mu'mina, and so she wants to uphold the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. We don't say you have to come back because you're already a traveler. You're already a traveler. So your new place of residence is going to be where you've traveled to. So the question for her is, do you have a way back, and is there someone from the maharim that can bring you back and you want to come back? Or you want to, for example, do it in Tripoli. She says, I want to do it in Tripoli. She's allowed to do it in Tripoli. Okay, so this is if she has traveled already or not. والمطلقة ثلاثا مثلها إلا في الاعتداد في بيتها. The one who has been divorced 3 times is similar to her in observing the iddah in her home. The one who has been divorced 3 times is similar to her except for observing the iddah in her home, meaning all of the rulings apply from her not beautifying herself, not leaving the house during the day or at night except for need, or at night times dire need, etc., except for where she stays in her place of residence. Obviously, if her husband has divorced her 3 times, they are no longer mahram for one another, So what is the case for her in a situation like that? She has the choice whether she's going to stay in that house and she can negotiate with her husband. Maybe he's the one that leaves. Negotiation, sisters, not take him to court and take everything that he has. This is not allowed Islamically unless it's actually yours shar'an. That's a whole different matter. Naam. But maybe the husband says, listen, you stay here and I'll look after for whatever reason. Maybe they got kids and it's more comfortable there. So they say, khalas, I'll do that. And then she does her iddah there. That's up to her. She's allowed to. Or, and obviously he's allowed to agree to it. Or it may be the case where they say, khalas, she's going to go back to her family's house or somewhere else. And she does her iddah in that place. Okay, but the rest of the rulings apply. There is an opinion that the woman who has been divorced 3 times doesn't need to beautify herself. Sorry, doesn't need to refrain from beautifying herself. And there is some difference of opinion regarding that matter. But and we do say the rulings are a little bit reduced regarding this matter in general. But it's very important we understand some of the wisdoms for the iddah. And we mentioned before that from the wisdoms, not the only reason, from amongst the wisdoms is that this woman is not taken advantage of. Because emotionally, now this is a very hard time. And you see what happens with a lot of women after they get divorced. They become, a lot of the time, it's like crazy. Now it's like party time. You get divorced, some are doing divorce parties. You guys heard of divorce parties? Some are doing divorce parties. Cakes and get yourself pretty again. You do a divorce party. And then, khalas, now that you're divorced, now you're single again. Which means you go out on the prowl. Let's get your nails done. Let's get your hair done. Let's get your makeup done. Let's get you in a nice dress. And let's have a few weeks, not nights out. Let's have a few weeks out and about. And they go crazy. Naam. And this is becoming more and more popular. And Islamically, this is not allowed. One of the things that Islam does is it protects even the emotions of the woman in this state so that she doesn't get taken advantage of. She doesn't destroy her own reputation, nor does someone have the opportunity to take advantage of her in this regard. Obviously, the woman in her iddah, like this, we said, is anyone allowed to ask for her hand? No, of course, no one is allowed to ask for her hand directly in these 2 circumstances also. But this is what we're talking about today. What is an obligation upon her? So quickly go through the nafaqat. So this is Bab Nafaqat al-Mu'taddat, the chapter on maintenance of the women observing the iddah, what does the men have to provide for them. He says رحمه الله وهن 3 أقسام أحدها الرجعية وهي من يمكن زوجها إمساكها فلها نفقة والسكنة. There are 3 categories. The first, the woman whose divorce is unfinalized, so her husband can take her back. She is entitled to maintenance and accommodation. In the first or second divorce, while she's in her iddah, again, the rulings are exactly the same as if they are 100% married. So he still has to provide the roof over her head. He still has to provide food for them, clothing for them, pay for their needs, etc. Tayyib. This is again now still the same category, but you have to just use your minds a little bit. وإن أسلم زوج الكافرة أو ارتدت امرأة المسلم فلا نفقة لهما. If the husband of an unbeliever becomes Muslim, or the wife of a Muslim apostatizes and he leaves Islam, the wife is not entitled to maintenance. So the husband of a kafirah becomes Muslim, or the wife of a Muslim becomes a kafirah. The wife is not entitled to maintenance. Why? Huh? But what happens to their marriage? Their marriage is now separated. Khalas, Assalamu alaikum. Okay? That's why there is no, in that time now, there is no nafaqah. Okay, for them. Because Islamically their marriage is not allowed to be done. طيب. ولو أسلمت امرأة الكافر أو ارتد زوج المسلمة بعد الدخول فلها نفقة العدة. But if the wife of an unbeliever becomes Muslim, or the husband of a Muslim apostatizes after consummation, the wife is entitled to maintenance. So they're both, the two non-Muslims. The wife becomes Muslim. The wife becomes Muslim. Here he's saying she's entitled to maintenance. Why? As a reward for becoming Muslim? No. Women's rights? Even though yes, but no. We spoke about this before. Sure.
She's under the banner of the Shari'i rulings now, so she has to get the.
This is early on we studied this. On who's allowed to marry who. And what happens in certain situations. Now, if we have Samantha and Jonathan, both non-Muslims. Samantha becomes Muslim. What happens to their marriage?
Void.
No, it's still a marriage because it's not under the. It wasn't a Shari'i marriage. It's like under the, say the Christian marriage. Is it?
So under Christianity was correct.
Yeah.
But now she became a Muslimah. So is she allowed to be married to a kafir?
No, she's not. Doesn't matter.
So what happens to their marriage?
It's invalid.
The last hope is with you,
They make the marriage,
Khairuddin.
they make the marriage contract.
You have the last hope.
Sheikh, unless the men
Mahmoud and Ahmed, Ahmed maybe has some hope too. Mahmoud can have a wild guess, maybe he gets it, but Ahmed, ما تعرفش?
She give him the choice, يا بيصير مسلم يا أما ما.
Remember, the kafira, if she becomes Muslim, yes, they're not allowed to stay with the kafir. But we don't automatically say that the marriage is void. She has her iddah. She has her iddah. If he becomes Muslim within the iddah, then the marriage continues. If she becomes Muslim within the iddah, then the marriage continues and they don't need to get back together. That's why she's still entitled to it. Wallahu alam. طيب. And that's why he says here, yes, we have to pay attention. Or the husband of a Muslim apostatizes, they were both Muslims, and then the husband became a murtad after consummation. After the consummation. Why? Because before the consummation, what's the ruling? What's the iddah of the one who gets married, the marriage contract, but there is no dukhul, there is no consummation?
She got a gift.
بالنسبة للعدة أنت خلاص أنت اليوم 0 من 100 صحيح. There is no عدة. طيب he says رحمه الله الثاني, so the one who a person can take back, they have to provide everything while they are in the عدة. The ثاني, the second type, البائن في الحياة بطلاق أو بفسخ فلا سكن لها بحال ولها النفقة إن كانت حاملا وإلا فلا. The second, the one whose separation during the life of the husband is finalized either through a divorce or annulment, is never entitled to accommodation. She is only entitled to maintenance if she is pregnant. Meaning, if a man divorces his wife 3 times, or they have their marriage rendered void, there's fasq, there's a problem in the marriage contract where they are now separated, or for example she does khula, okay, and the marriage is finalized, so he can't take her back. He can't take her back by choice. These people are separated and there is nothing obligatory that he has to pay to look after that woman. Unless he owes her money from the mahar or something else, this is different. But he does not have to pay for her rent, pay for her food, clothing, etc. He doesn't have to pay anything. The only exception is what? Is if she's pregnant. If the woman is pregnant, she is entitled to you looking after her. Why?
Because the baby from him.
Good. Okay, الحمد لله جبت واحدة. Correct. It's not to do with the iddah. It's got nothing to do with the iddah. Because they may be separated. 3 divorces. So her iddah is until she gives birth. But the nafaqah has nothing to do with her iddah. It has to do with the fact that that is his baby. And so anything that his baby needs, he's responsible for. So if she's looking after the baby and during her pregnancy, and it needs food, and possibly she may need shelter, etc., whatever she needs for that pregnancy, wrong. Whatever the baby needs during that pregnancy, he has to provide. Okay? He has to provide.
It's not his baby.
What?
It's not his baby.
What the heck? Allah yahdik, this is a big curve for this one. We're going to get to a chapter if a person doubts that it's his baby. طيب الثالث التي توفي زوجها عنها فلا نفقة لها ولا سكنى. The third is the woman whose husband has died. She is not entitled to maintenance or accommodation. Okay? So if you can take the wife back, then you have to look after her. If there's complete separation, you don't have to look after her. The only exception is if she is pregnant, because you have to look after your child. So whatever the child needs in her stomach, you have to give to her regarding. The third one is the woman whose husband passes away. What is she entitled to from his wealth? She's not entitled to nafaqah, maintenance, like clothing, food, etc. Nor is she entitled to sukna, yani shelter. What does she get from him? If there is inheritance. If there's inheritance, obviously she gets her share of the inheritance. And the responsibility now falls on the other men around her, like her father or her children. Okay? So he is not obliged to take money out from the inheritance to look after her. She just gets from his inheritance that which is due to her. If she has children, then 1/8. If she doesn't have children, then 1/4. Sorry, if they have children, 1/8. If they don't have children, then 1/4. Tayyib. Question. If the father passes away and he's the one that owns the house, and for example, he's left behind a wife and 3 children, does she, the mother, have the right to say, you're not allowed to sell the house because I want to keep living in it? You sure she doesn't have the right to say it?
She has the right.
She has the right to say it? And do they need to oblige?
She wants it.
Do they have to enact? Do they have to listen to her?
Yeah.
No. She can ask for whatever she wants. But Islamically, they don't have to keep her in the house and not sell the house. Because this is now their wealth. And they are allowed to do with their wealth as they please. They can even tell their mother, Mum, yes, it's our wealth and we don't mind you living here, no problem. Especially if they can afford it. This is a very nice thing to do. But if they say, Mum, we need the inheritance, we need the money from selling the house, and we'll look after you somewhere else or somehow else. And he will build you a granny flat, or we'll rent out another place, or we'll buy something smaller, whatever it may be, they'll look after the mother, but they have the right to say, we want to sell the house. Why do I say this? Because this happens a lot. It happens a lot. Where the father passes away, the children are all in their own houses, and now the mother wants to stay in the house. And they say to each other, what should we do? Some may not have a problem with her living in the house. Some may have a problem and they need the money or whatever the excuse is. So they say, no, we want to sell the house, so we have our share. This is very important Islamically. This becomes every individual's wealth and they are entitled to that wealth straight away. So you're not allowed to withhold a person's wealth. Let's say there's 5 brothers. Now, 3 want to sell, 2 don't want to sell. There's options. Give them their money. If you 3 buy out their shares, khalas, buy their shares, and now the house becomes for you 3, for example. But they are allowed to ask for the inheritance straight away, and you have to provide the inheritance, either by selling the house or providing them their share from the inheritance, if you want to keep it. But to say, no, we're going to keep our mum in it, and we're not going to give you your share when mum passes away, maybe 5 years, 10 years, Allahu A'lam when, then we'll split up the inheritance. This is not allowed to force them. You're not allowed to force them to doing that. Tayyib. To finalize, when it comes to the divorce and the iddah and the rulings of the iddah, our sisters should make sure that they apply it and they live up to it, yarhamukallah. And this comes usually with iman before it happens. If you don't have iman before it happens, it becomes very hard for you to do things which you're not used to. For you to sacrifice for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, you have to truly believe so you can fulfill that purpose of sacrifice. Because it's not always easy to sacrifice. And the less iman you have, the less willingness you have to sacrifice. And so you're like, you know what, khalas, I don't care about these rulings, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And so it's a major issue. This is a dying act of worship that people are not upholding. And so we need to remind ourselves, remind our women folk, remind our friends that this is the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, and we need to enact all of it. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. O you who believe, enter into Islam completely and do not follow the footsteps of the shaitan. Once you start leaving a little bit, you end up leaving a lot. So whether it's the iddah or any other ruling, we need to apply it. As for that which has to do with the wealth, there's two parts. Part number one, don't be a person who's stingy. Okay, don't be a person who's stingy or money hungry. Be easygoing when it comes to the nafaqah. If a woman is a very bad woman, I understand that you don't want to obviously be extra good to her, etc. At least do what the Sharia obliged for you to do. But if the woman is a decent woman, and khalas, for whatever reason, it's not working out between you guys, and so you want to leave, or it comes to the matters of inheritance, the dad passes away, and so the mother is there, and they're decent people, try and be as good and as honorable and as generous as you can be. And ask yourself, how would you want someone to treat your daughter or your sister in that state? You're divorcing your wife. She's a good woman, it just didn't work out. If your daughter got divorced, how would you want her to get divorced? Where the husband leaves her with nothing? No, you would like for him to try and make her life as easy as possible. Especially if it's easy for you and you know she is deserving and in need. So treat people how you want to be treated. Ask yourself, that was your sister, your daughter, how would you want them to be treated? Similarly with the mother. Okay? The husband passes away, don't make the mother feel like now she has become a beggar. She spent 50, 60 years in hardship raising you and your brothers and sisters, and now your father has passed away. Be very careful not to make her feel like she is now trash. If you can look after her and honor her and keep with her comfort, do so. And maybe you do have a sibling that needs money. So try your best to give him the money that he is entitled to make your mother's life easier. But if there are people that need money and the only way that happens is by selling their house, then this is their Islamic right and don't cause issues because of it. And this is a very good question. Whether it's a specific example that the doctor gave, which is in Egypt, it's very common if the wife, her husband passes away, that they go to the place where there is the azat. People are coming to gather and give their condolences. Is this allowed? The asal is no, because it is not a need. The people can come if they want to and visit her in the house. But why is this a good question? Because there's two very common problems that happen even here in Australia. I find that a lot with, one of them is with the Lebanese community, the other one is in general. The one that I get asked a lot from the Lebanese community, especially here in Wollongong for some reason, is after a woman passes away, can a man who's not mahram speak to her? Not regarding marriage, just in general. I have, let's say there's an old lady in the community, and I, as someone in the community, want to say to the Hajj, عظم الله أجرك, or بارك الله فيك, or غفره الله عز وجل, عظم الله أجرك, whatever I want to mention to her. Am I allowed? Yes, I'm allowed. We don't do ta'hanak, as we say. There's no stupid idle talk between you and any non-mahram woman. There shouldn't be, where you go and you sit and you have coffee and you just waste time. Naam. But for you to pass your condolences onto her or to make dua for her, and she talks to you, is there anything that you need, hajj, etc., there is no problem with that. Okay, as long as it's respectful and there's no fitna, there's no issue with that. As for that which is becoming a bigger problem, I find that with different communities, is the woman after her husband passes away going to the washing of the body, the janazah and the burial. Again, the rule is, husband passes away, the woman is now in her iddah. From the moment he passed away, she's in her iddah. That's second. And so she doesn't leave the house unless there is a need. And going to his janazah, or whether it's the washing, or the prayer, or the burial is not a need. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم محمد وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين.